Good evening, Southwest families. Welcome to our virtual secondary town hall. We want to welcome you to tonight's panel. We want to discuss the district school reentry plan and make sure that we get your feedback as we go through this presentation. We do have a YouTube channel right now going up. We're live on YouTube. So any questions that you may have, we're going to ask that you place them on the YouTube site, and we will collect those and develop an FAQ. We have received many questions from our families that we have collected, and we will be answering some of those questions after tonight's presentation. And with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce our panel. We have Dr. Lloyd Verstuff, Superintendent of Schools. We have Dalila Garcia Castro, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. Brandon Chris, Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance. Mark Figueroa, Executive Director of Safety, Transportation, and Policy. And Valerie Maldonado, Director of Health Services. And with that being said, I'm going to start off with Dr. Lloyd Verstuff.
Thank you, Janice. And so I'd like to also welcome our parents, families for joining us for this secondary meeting. And, before I even get started, I just want to let our families know, for those families who have been directly impacted or touched by this COVID-19 since March, just know that our hearts and our prayers go out to you, and we have you in thought and mind, and we hope that you stay safe and remain safe. And so I'd just like to kind of start and give an overall explanation. As all of you know, that last March, our students went home for spring break and basically never returned to face-to-face school. And we have not since that time because of the world pandemic and what's happening. And so, I want to commend our teachers for over a weekend moving into an emergency remote learning platform and doing the best that they could to make sure that our students and families stayed engaged. We benefited a lot from our 2010 bond, where we allotted $10 million towards technology, and a lot of that went to devices to make sure our students had access to technology and to devices. And then in 2018, another $3 million towards infrastructure. And so we had some benefit to be able to get technology out to our students. But we also know that learning from home with no warning, that a lot of that angst went to our families and our parents who really had to maintain the household and employment and still keep their children engaged and learning that trajectory of education. And so I also want to commend our families and our parents and everyone who contributed to the well-being of our students during that time. So we started meeting as groups, and we've kind of become experts on Zoom meetings and providing information. We meet with state officials, we meet with our local officials and state leadership who makes decisions in education and local leadership. We probably meet with our local ISD partners, I would say at least 3 to 5 times a week, with our Texas Education Agency Commission of Education at least twice a week. This whole time, it's about how do we plan for the 2020-2021 school year. And I can tell you quite honestly, what we discussed in May and June changed basically from month to month. When we got into July, information would change from week to week. As we were getting into later July, it seems like information is evolving and changing. Not that anyone's doing anything wrong, it's just there's so much information and so much preparation statewide for 5.4 million students that we want to get the best information we can. In our district, we're trying to be very patient. Instead of sending out a plan and then having to modify that plan over time, we're really coming to our families, our secondary families today, to present to you our 5-point plan. What's our framework around our 5-point plan? What are we thinking? And so this presentation is really kind of a high elevation level, just to have a conversation, so you know what we're looking at, what we're thinking, the conversations that we're having, not only with local ISDs, but with our local Texas Education Agency, our local ESC Region 20 staff. So we're all engaged in dialogue, conversation, receiving guidelines and in some cases receiving directives about what does the COVID-19 landscape locally looks like, what decisions can we make, what flexibilities do we have, what are some directives that we have, and making sure that as we go into the new school year, 2021 school year, making sure that first and foremost that we keep our kids' well-being and safety on the forefront and do not shy away from that. That said, we know that there are definitely two distinct camps of folks, and there's some folks who want to access face-to-face school right away. We know there are some families who remain concerned with the landscape as it is and with the data as it is, that they want to participate in the remote environment. And so it's our task to support all of the choices that our families make to put our students in the best possible position to make decisions for them as they start their school year. Where I'd like to start tonight is just to let everyone know that Texas Education Agency has given every school district in Texas up to a 4-week period from when they start school to basically remain in remote. You can go to a face-to-face environment early if you want to, but you can take up to 4 weeks if you want to for 100% remote opportunity for our students to stay in that environment and outside of the buildings. And then with school board approval, you can, and TEA application, you can extend that actually another 4 weeks. So there is a possibility that districts have that they can stay basically 8 weeks into 100% remote before moving to an option of face-to-face. That said, that's information from TEA. Running parallel to that is that here in Bexar County in San Antonio, we basically have a local health order that does not allow any school other than parochial and private, but any other public school that we cannot start any face-to-face options for our families until after Labor Day, which is September 7th. So right now, as everything stands, the first opportunity for any Bexar County San Antonio school to start any or offer any face-to-face options is September 8th and moving forward. One thing we do know, and one thing that does remain intact, is that our first day of school with children is August 24th, and that remains our first day of school. And so that means for that first 2-week period, all things staying like they are, all of our students will be in 100% remote learning opportunities. And remote going into the 2021 school year looks a lot different than the emergency remote learning platform that we moved to back in March. And so you have on the screen right there the local health order that we are complying with and have to comply with. It basically says that we cannot start any face-to-face option until after September 7th. It also includes in one of those bullet points the responsibility to be able to offer any of our students access to technology who may have challenges in technology infrastructure. And so we're going to hear more about that in the presentation later on. It also allows school districts to allow their teachers to come into the school building to teach remotely and to develop videos within their classroom, as long as no one campus surpasses the 10% capacity mark. And so we'll talk more about that later on. And there is a emphasis on the face-to-face not starting, the third bullet, and that it applies to all things related to school, all those extracurricular, co-curricular, any type of school fair, school event, meet the teacher. It's applicable to all of those events. Now, every school in Bexar County, every school district in Bexar County and San Antonio, if everything stays the same, because the city and mental health can extend this order beyond September 7th. So everything I'm talking about is about this order we have today. There could be another one next week and another one as we get closer to September 7th. But if all things remain the same, we would have to submit our plan to start face-to-face to the city, to Metro Health by August 21st of this year. And so we're prepared to do that. And we're watching the COVID data landscape and we're keeping track of that. That's where we are today. And that's the order that we're we have to comply with and we are in compliance with. What you're going to hear today, and our objective today, is to really share with our parents and our families and our students about what we're thinking, and what we're really asking for today is, as we present a high level before we roll our plan out in a few weeks on our website, that we're going to present our 5 points of information that we're gathering. And so we're trying to keep it high level because there's so much information. And what we're asking from our parents and our students today, that if there's something that we say that resonates, a question, a concern, did you think about, we're asking you to put that in, because we're using this opportunity to really collect more input from our parents. We know we send surveys out, we get aggregate data, and Mr. Crisp is going to go through some of that in a few minutes. But we're asking tonight some open-ended questions that you might have. So as we get to completing and developing our plan for a rollout in about 2 weeks, that we make sure that we included some of those concerns you may have today, just kind of thinking about school and where you're going to make a choice for what module your child will attend school in. So our 5-point plan, it really touches on 5 things: prevention, incident reporting, learning options, supporting students, and contingency planning. What you see on the screen in front of you right now is basically how our school district is divided up. We have 18 campuses where we serve our students in Southwest ISD, about 13,800 students, just right short of 14,000 students. And then we have a central office that supports that network of schools. And our central office is divided up into academics and business, communication, administration, human resource, and health and wellness. And you can see who those senior sponsors are in the middle column right there. And then you can see who the project leads are. And so what we've been able to do with our senior admin is really in June, developed a task force around really taking some of these issues and things that we're learning through Zoom and with TEA and with Region 20 and with our other ISD partners throughout San Antonio. Take that information, really drill down into that information. How does it impact our students? How does it impact our families? How does it impact decisions that we make? And we're going to give that to you in high level, asking you to contribute information or your concerns and questions you have tonight as well. So all in all, there's probably in our district about 100 people involved in the task force. The idea is that we take information that we receive, we take it out, and we try to spread that information out, have dialogue, conversation, collaboration, and then that information comes back to the decision-making body here in the district to put our best thinking forward. And before we get to the finality and before we roll it out, we want to make sure that we're offering this opportunity to our parents. And so this is our third town hall opportunity. We presented to all district staff. Yesterday, we presented to elementary parents yesterday evening, and now we're presenting to our secondary parents this evening. And so with that said, I kind of went over our points to our plan, and underneath every one of those points is a lot of information. And so our goal here is to frame the thinking, ask for your questions. And so what I'd like to do at this time, we've conducted surveys and we have information that we like to share with our parents. And we're going to conduct another survey to get aggregate data next week as well. So I'd like to ask Mr. Brandon Crisp if he'll kind of take over from here. And what we'll do is we'll start with the survey data that we've already collected from our families.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Verstov. Thank you, community members and panelists for joining us tonight. As Dr. Verstov mentioned, we have created a task force consisting of over 100 people. We're part of different committees, which include district leadership, every single principal, campus teachers from every campus, other positions such as counselors, social workers, and other positions across the district. As we became informed by this research and through surveys, we have begun to develop our comprehensive 5-point plan designed to keep our students and faculty and staff healthy, and at the same time provide flexibility for families unable to return and allow us to create some contingency plans in the future. Dr. Verstov kind of went over the 5 points discussed, and so as key leaders work through these committees, I want to point out that we continue to navigate an ever-changing landscape, sometimes weekly and most often daily. So we appreciate your patience. So the 5 key points that Dr. Versa talked about included prevention, incident reporting for both student and staff, learning options for our students, which is top priority, and supporting students, and the contingency planning so we can be prepared. I'd like to share with you some of the survey data that we sent out at this time. So there you go. At this time, looking at this high level survey data that went out, just to let you know, we have surveyed our staff, and we had about 50% return. This will go out again in the near future, but for our community, we wanted you to know that about 44% of our staff said they would be willing to return to work on campus. One thing to point out is that we have about 34% who said, I don't know. We do have some staff members who are really concerned about what's going on, about our health and safety, their health and safety, and that of our students. Go ahead, next slide. According to the survey, these are the safety measures that our staff feels need to be in place if they were to return face-to-face learning. Keeping in mind, reentry does not mean we'll come back 100% with 14,000 students. It means that we will have a reentry plan based on phases, looking at capacity thresholds so we can continue to social distance. Some of the data showed that some of the things that needed to be in place included daily screening for all, restrict campus visitors, which will be a little bit different for us, increased sanitation efforts, regular hand washing for all, social distancing in classrooms, students and staff wearing masks or face shields, and then staggered entry, exit, and transition plans. We are planning around this data and taking these recommendations seriously into account during our planning with our committees. Next slide. This next slide indicates our parent surveys. We had a little over 4,000 parent surveys taken, and this gives us great data on the current mindset of our parents across our district. And we can see that the data is aligned to the survey data that most districts across Bexar County are receiving. Our survey shows that 77% of Southwest ISD parents indicated that at this time, they prefer the virtual learning environment for their children. 23% indicated that they would prefer a face-to-face setting. Tonight, you will hear in our planning that we will have options for parents and students. So as a parent, you'll have a choice. At this time, I would like to turn over the first indicator, prevention, to Mark Figueroa and Valerie Maldonado, who will walk you through some of the key planning around that indicator.
Good evening, community members, staff members, parents, and other interested parties. I'd like to share with you our first point of the 5-point plan. My name is Mark Figueroa. I am in charge of safety, transportation, and policy for our district. Also presenting on this will be Valerie Maldonado, Director of Health Services. We put this plan together actually during school closure. We began looking at best practices, research, what the recommendations were from the CDC as well as the Texas Education Agency, local health authorities, and Region 20. Extremely confident that this is a comprehensive plan. We were a step ahead of a lot of the districts around us when we went into closure. We had our cleaning guidelines already established, and we've had sanitation stations that arrived before spring break. So proud to say that we did an excellent job of planning prior to the closures of schools, and we've continued that process moving forward. I'd like to bring in our Director of Health Services, Valerie Maldonado. She will begin discussing hygiene practices as well as social distancing.
Thank you, Mark. So I really want to just emphasize that prevention really is what we're trying to do, really minimizing the risk of the spread of COVID-19, just like you've been hearing throughout the news and quite frequently, actually. So we really want to make sure that we have a safe environment for our students and our staff. And our task force really consisted of several people that helped to put these practices together, including Southwest ISD nurses. They are our healthcare professionals on our campuses, principals, teachers, and others. So with that, prevention really starts at home. We're asking that the parents and even those students who are older, like our secondary students, if they're having any COVID-19 symptoms, they stay home. They don't come to school, because that just adds to the spread of COVID-19. So the screening process starts at home. Once they arrive to school, they will receive a temperature check to make sure that they do not have a fever. And as they enter, the hygiene practices that we have in place include, as Mark had mentioned, hand sanitizer stations. So they will be able to sanitize their hands as they enter our campus facilities. We will have hand sanitizer stations throughout our campuses. We will have signage and posters up emphasizing that practice and the importance of hand washing, because really that is a simple but very effective measure to prevent the spread of any infectious illness. And so we want to make sure that we relay that to our students and help them understand how important that really is. Hand sanitizer stations will actually be in our classes as well. We will integrate hand hygiene practices in our routine, like washing our hands with soap and water before eating, after eating, and definitely, again, just emphasize that the importance of hygiene, hand hygiene. We will emphasize respiratory etiquette as well, covering your cough and your sneezes with a tissue, washing your hands afterwards, or with your elbow if you don't have a tissue available. And so again, a lot of that is education. We have put those practices into place, and we will continue to do so with our students. Social distancing is another measure of prevention that will be in place, which means staying 6 feet away from one another. So we will make sure that our classes allow for social distancing to the extent possible. We will make sure that if that's not possible, we will put in other methods of prevention, like barriers on our desks. And so you will be aware of those plans as we get closer to bringing our students back to class. But we will really be emphasizing social distancing, hygiene as some practices of prevention. And then Mark will go over the cleaning guidelines and the PPE plan, which will also add another layer of prevention. Mark?
Thank you, Valerie. Our cleaning guidelines were earlier established, as I mentioned, prior to spring break. We had already established several layers of cleaning, layers of protection within our buildings. We started with the daily cleanings, the weekly cleanings, and we added a deep cleaning process as well. We put that into practice during spring break, not knowing that we were going to go to closure right afterwards, so that plan was already in place. We've continued to evolve that plan with the recommendations from local state health authorities, as well as Region 20 and the Texas School Safety Center. We are looking at improving our practices by looking at products that the EPA as well as the FDA are recommending as well. So part of that is an intensive training program that's going to be included for our custodials as well as our facilities and maintenance staff. And that'll be ongoing and evolving, as this is a fluid situation with COVID-19. Personal protective equipment plan, we've ordered masks, surgical masks, disposable masks. We've ordered masks that can be reused with filters. We are ordering customizable masks for our campuses, as well as face shields that are age appropriate, grade level appropriate as well. And the expectation is that all of our staff will be wearing masks, and we'll be following CDC guidelines as well as TEA recommendations on which grade levels will be recommended to wear those during the day. We are looking at other PPE products such as desk dividers, the plexiglass splash protectors, the sneeze protectors as well. We are researching best practices on that and seeking guidance again from not only our local agencies, but we're working and collaborating with other local districts as well, so that we can all have the same type of productive plans in place moving forward. Thank you, folks.
Our next slide is in regard to incident reporting. And when it comes to somebody testing positive for COVID-19, a student or staff member and being on campus, if they actually tested positive, they shouldn't be on campus. But once we get that notification, a few things will happen. One, we will make sure that we clean and disinfect those areas that person was was in that were heavily used by that person. We will communicate with our local public health entities, San Antonio Metropolitan Health District, and we will also do some contact tracing, meaning identifying those people who were in close contact of that person within 6 feet for 15 minutes or longer, and make sure that they are aware, keeping that person's identity confidential because it is medical information, but making sure that they are aware that they were in close contact with somebody who was identified as having COVID-19 by a lab confirmed test. And that goes for students and staff. If somebody has had close contact with a lab confirmed case, we will need to have them being quarantined for 14 days. So that way we can help to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. We have had experience with our staff in this regard, and we do have those protocols pretty down as far as what needs to be done. Our campus staff and parents will be notified when there is a lab confirmed case of COVID-19 on campus. And so we want to make sure that we are transparent and we notify our community what is going on in our school district. But do know that we do have protocols in place for both of our students and staff. Thank you.
Good evening, Southwest families. We thank you for, first of all, just like our superintendent mentioned, with no planning, you were our first forefront teacher in the home, and we appreciate you doing your part and also helping us get better through this process. We know that the start of the school year is around the corner, and a lot of decisions have still been contemplating as far as what should we do with our children, what should we do as far as making the right choice for them. We appreciate your patience, as we know that you've been wanting to get this information sooner. We have on a weekly basis, we tune in to listen to our commissioner, and through the state, they give us information as far as what are going to be the allowances for this coming school year in terms of the best instruction that we can provide for your child at home. So just like our superintendent mentioned, our first initial start date will be August the 24th. And so by then we would like for every single family to make sure that they do have that device. One thing we want to do is ensure that every single student in our community has the instruction ready and available on August the 24th. Your campuses will be contacting you with the devices that will be available, and there will be more further information to you as when that comes. So the state has given us allowance for us to begin our face-to-face instruction on September the 8th. And so these are two options that the state has allowed for the districts to continue the planning for this coming school year. So as we look at our learning modes, we have what is called remote. Remote is at virtual learning. So with a virtual learning, we have two different opportunities. And so we heard what our community mentioned last year in the spring. When we started this initially, we understood that teachers were on the computer, students were on the computer 6 hours, 5 hours throughout the daytime. And so with that said, we are considering on moving our platform, our virtual platform, our remote learning to an asynchronous opportunity. Asynchronous means that at any time, the students can log in and receive their instruction. At the same time, we also know that our parents would like to receive that direct instruction from the teacher. Teachers will be tuning in, will be logging in at the same time as is scheduled with their campus daily schedules in order for them to provide that daily instruction to your child. So we are looking forward to this coming school year with and also a different platform for learning. We know that in the springtime, we moved all of our learning to what we call Google Classroom. And so we are going to be receiving from our state an opportunity for us to provide for the elementary and for the secondary, a platform where students will be able to complete assignments on a daily basis. And this is where what the state has required. So last year in the springtime, we all questioned ourselves. How do we know if the students are engaged? How do we know if they are learning? So the state has been very specific. They have created 3 different components that we have to create a plan, submit it to the state, and be approved. And this plan goes along with us accounting for their attendance on a daily basis. In order for the student to be admitted, or in order for them to receive present for the day, they're going to have to submit an activity. Whether that activity is going to help us measure the data that they are progressing, and also they're completing assignments. So every single content, academic content, and also our extracurriculars will be offered on a daily basis. Can we go to the next slide, please? So now we go into the choices that you as a parent, as a guardian have for your child. So here we have students are able to attend on the face-to-face after September the 8th, every single day. For 5 days a week, we are asked that we provide this opportunity for elementary and middle school students. So again, with following the health ordinance capacity, we are looking at beginning with 10% and moving on forward through the percentages that the county and our local officials authorize us for us to do. So we will be moving through intervals and we will be determining the group of students that will be registered and allowed for them to come back to a face-to-face instruction. We also have our hybrid, our remote instruction, which is mentioned to you. And we want to make sure that there is going to be daily evidence of progress. This is essential for us to make sure that our high school students are receiving their credits in order for them to graduate, and also that they are receiving the attendance necessary for them to complete their credit for the school year. Now, remote instruction, which is our next slide, remote, we also have hybrid. Can we go to the next slide, please? For the hybrid option, this would be at the high school only. The state has allowed for us to bring in students in larger groups. And so what this would allow in hybrid is assigning students, either they come in on an A day or a B day, which is what we're calling it right now. Either students will be coming on Monday, Wednesday, or if not, Tuesday and Thursday. The reason we are allowing our high school students to participate in this program that has been allowed by the state on this option is in order for the students to be able to have that contact necessary through the various courses. For example, biology, our science classes require some lab hours. Also, we have our career technical courses that also require some lab hours. In addition to this, we know that we are also exciting. Every year, we look forward to football, we look forward to the sports. So the University Interscholastic League, our UIL, they have made some decisions and they are right now delaying the beginning of our sports, our fall sports. And we are right now looking at perhaps September, October, and the end of that season will probably run until December and January. So right now that is the latest. And they also have some social distance measures that have to be put in place in order for us to be able to move and bring our students and provide them the best education. Thank you.
With respect to supporting students, in the spring, we were fortunate that the district, with the support of the school board, had the foresight in previous bonds to plan a technology initiative to put a device in the hands of all students. So we were able to provide a device to any student who needed it during the school closure after spring break. However, we did face a connectivity gap for our families across the district with high quality internet service. At the time, we tried to mitigate that connectivity issue with hotspots. So even though we were very limited, we only had about 350 hotspots available at that time. We did create some access points at our campus so that parents and families could use those and drive up and access that internet service that we had on our campuses. So however, in preparation for the school year, we knew that we were possibly going to be in the same type of environment. And so we ordered 1,600 more hotspots. And so going into the school year, we will have around 2,000 hotspots available for families in need of internet service. You'll be able to access those through your campus checkout system, similar to how you would check out your devices. We also ordered previously through board action 7,000 new devices that should be coming in soon. We are dealing with a supply chain issue at this point. We ordered these back in April and we still haven't received them. So we're hoping to receive them in the next few weeks. Regardless whether we receive those or not, we do have enough devices to give every student in our district a device to take home. And as we get the new ones in, we can replenish some of the older devices. So your campuses, like Ms. Dalila Garcia said, they're going to be reaching out to you in the upcoming weeks on the plan to distribute the technology and have the checkout system for you for the hotspots. In regards to attendance, the district had the opportunity in the spring to basically suspend attendance requirements due to the school closure. The district was able to track students through engagement and did not have to reflect that through marking students present or absent. However, I think as a point of pride for our community, because we were tracking very high numbers of engagement from our students. And when we compared to other districts across Bexar County, we were well above others. We know it wasn't perfect, but we did have a community that was supporting their kids in that environment. And so we were very thankful for that. It will be different this year as we are having to submit a very specific instructional plan. We're going to have to be very specific on attendance as well. And so at this time, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Figueroa to talk about the SEL.
Thank you, Mr. Chris. We know that during COVID-19 that it's been extremely stressful and been some anxiety that's been generated with dealing with COVID-19, the changes, the new norm that we're having to live with. So part of our instructional planning as well as our operational planning, we are considering, we know we need to consider the social and emotional learning aspect. During our closure, we did have our counselors and our social workers do a tremendous job of supporting our students remotely, but also being able to make recommendations externally for support with other mental health care providers at the request of families. Moving forward, part of our instructional plan is to include social and emotional learning daily in the lessons, and we understand that students are not going to be able to learn unless they feel safe, secure in their environments. And in order for them to have positive learning experiences, not only with education, but moving on with life, that we understand that our school district is going to have to play an important role in that. So as part of our planning throughout the summer, we have included social and emotional learning as one of our main priorities.
This is Lloyd Verstuff again. So I'll take the fifth point of our 5-point plan. And as I mentioned earlier, we do receive a lot of guidance from the national, state, and our local health guidelines, specifically around developing contingency plans. And so there are some expectations that will be assessed to our district and our campus. Some examples of that, if they have a well-honed plan that we can roll out to our families and to our students, and really kind of address all these points about going to school during this time of COVID, and making sure that we have really safe environments. And so some of the expectations that would be in collaboration with our district and our campus are things like staggered start and exit times. What does flow look like? And a lot of this has to do with face-to-face instruction on the campus, making sure that for those families who do select that module that we've really talked through and we've really met with and had conversations with folks at the national, state, and local health area. So we do get a lot of guidelines. We get a lot of direction from several different sources, and it's kind of working through that. I can tell you, as a senior group for the last 3 weeks, we start every morning off for 3 to 4 hours in our Zoom, taking aspects of this plan and being able to kind of drill down into it. As I said earlier, when we first started this meeting, it's a very fluid environment, and I can tell you things that we made decisions on a week ago have already evolved into something else, and they're different now. And so we're trying to keep pace with as TEA comes out and they provide more direction and more information for us. What do we do with that? And so in our 5-point plan, in the contingency planning, there will be times through the school year, depending on what the COVID landscape and data and exposure looks like, that we may have to have stop outs. If we have contact tracing and it drives us to close down a campus, Under the TEA guidelines, we can close down the campus up to 5 days, disinfect the campus, bring those students back if it's within one caliber of that decision making. We also may have statewide shutdowns, and in either type, that anytime we have a shutdown of a face-to-face module, we have to have a contingency where those students can fall right back into a remote virtual learning platform successfully and continue their educational trajectory. And that's a few sentences, but that's a lot of information and planning behind each one of those. Student expectations and staff expectations under contingency planning is a lot different when we moved into the emergency remote learning versus this 2021 remote learning platform. The student expectations are kind of derived from predominantly from guidelines given to us from TEA, is that students to be counted present are going to have daily logins. They're going to have to be in school every day. They're going to have to meet the 75,600 minute protocols. Are going to have to meet the 90% attendance to meet promotion requirements and credit requirements. So there's different expectations, and they're going to have to comply with the same kind of grading policy that every district in Texas already had within their online policy prior to the pandemic. That's the same type of grading parameters that we will use associated with teaching and learning. Staff expectations, that there's an expectation that staff is engaged. I mentioned earlier that our goal when we are in remote is to have our teachers, of course, when it's safe and teachers feel comfortable, teaching from the classroom versus the dining room, because we know that's a different level of teaching. And we know that it's a different environment that's created for our students who are working remotely, and to post in the asynchronous module videos of lessons, but also have opportunity within the official workday to make contacts with students who may need some more one-on-one support or small group support. So we're building those opportunities in, and doing it from a classroom provides a lot more of that opportunity. And so we're going to bring more information out. I know we have more town hall scheduled for the future. I think our next slide, it's kind of our commitment, our communication strategy. And so if you can see in the category what we're doing with this information, that we've packaged at a very, like a 30,000 elevation level to start the conversation and to help our families understand our frame around what we're having conversations about. We continue having conversations with our principals, and you can see that we meet with our principals in Zoom meetings. Sometimes it's every week, sometimes it's every couple of weeks, but we have those scheduled throughout where we bring that information to them, have conversation, we learn about their challenges. Will it work? Will it not work? What do we need to modify? Today is the 23rd of July, and this is our final of our first phase of town halls to introduce high-level plan to receive communication back from our families who are part of this plan. We also have a complete Spanish version of this same presentation that will be taking place next week, and we'll take information from that as well to include in our plan. You can see that we have another round of town halls the first week in August and going into the third week in August to continue sharing as our plan evolves and takes shape, and when it turns into a digital format that we know our parents and families can be proud of, and that's going to provide them all the information they need. We will roll that out, and that should be within the next 2 weeks. We did conduct this town hall with all of our Southwest ISD family, present that information to them. As Mr. Chris went through some aggregate survey information, it helps us understand what % of our total parents are thinking they want to stay in remote, what % of our parents thinking they want to come face to face. So that helps in our planning and talking to our teachers and creating these different groups of a virtual group and a remote group rather than a face-to-face group of teachers and working with them. So that's what aggregate data helps us think about. And we know that when we take surveys, a lot of that has to do with what's going on at that point in time in real time. And so we'd like to conduct another one next week on the 24th of July, so that we can collect data again. And we'll probably do another aggregate survey in August as well. So we have taken this kind of high level plan to our Board of Trustees on the 21st of July. We traditionally do what's called a administrative leadership retreat. This year it will be in a Zoom format with all of our leadership. And that's on July 30th and 31st, where the bulk of that time we are spending within this plan, really getting into the details and the weeds, and really helping our campus leadership understand what are those challenges, what are the obstacles, and how do we work those things out. And then we plan our first day of school for all students will be remote, 100% remote, starting August 24th. And currently at this presentation, the first opportunity to offer face-to-face again is September the 8th. And just understand it's very fluid. And I know the numbers that came back in our report today was over 1,000 more exposures. And so we know that the landscape hasn't changed a lot. And so that time frame, or that time of September the 8th is subject to change by our local health advisors, Metropolitan Health. And if we get that information, we'll definitely get it right out to our families. And so this is kind of, again, this is high level. There's a lot of meetings going on and dialogue and collaboration and conversation so that we can put the details to all of this information, roll that out to our parents. So when you have some question, that you can go somewhere and have access to that information. Well, also, we know that our parents need to make a choice at some point here in the near future of what they are officially choosing for their child. And so we expect to have that information out hopefully next week, but give our parents a long window of opportunity, because we know that if we can wait, that our parents may make a different choice the week after. And so we're trying to create a very flexible, long window. We also know some of our parents already know what they want. And so we'd like to get that information, opportunity to sign up for which module you want to choose for your child or children, so that we can start getting all that information together. And understand that if you choose one module, you don't have to stay in that module all year. You're going to have an opportunity to choose one or the other at the end of each grading period. And so for secondary, that'll be 4 times for there's 4 grading periods. In elementary, we do it in 6 weeks or 6 grading periods. We'll have more information and the details about that later on, but I just want parents kind of globally understand that what choice you make in the beginning, if you start school that way, and you want to make another choice secondary after the 8th week, starting the 10th week, we'll have a application process or a notification process for you to tell us that. So at this point in time, I'd like to turn this back over to Ms. Hernandez. I know that she collected some questions. We're going to answer some questions now, and then she'll kind of close this meeting out for us. Ms. Hernandez?
Thank you, Dr. Verstuff. We do have some community questions that have come in through our surveys, and we have a little bit of time that we are going to take to kind of answer some of these questions. We do have some questions also coming in through the YouTube chat. Just know that we are working on an FAQ, and we will post that on our district website. So our first question we have is for Brandon Crisp. Next year's school year, and how will sports be handled?
Just to kind of jump right on board, we actually have a committee working on schedules for next year. We're going to have to approach it on the different learning models. So we will be working on a schedule that's specifically for the remote learning environment, and also a schedule when we start going face-to-face. There's a lot to consider for the face-to-face that will include transportation, food service, how we do those inside the schedule, and then also looking at staggered starts and entry time, exit times. We will work through those, and we'll provide guidance soon once we kind of get an idea of the students that will be coming face-to-face. As far as athletics, that's a very fluid situation. We anticipate having sports at some point next year in the school year, but we'll have to navigate the local health ordinance and follow all the guidance that the UIL has provided. And at the end of the day, we have to make sure our plan is in place and make sure the students are safe when that time comes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Our next question is for Mr. Figueroa. How will social distancing, PPE, and daily sanitation on each campus be?
So as part of our planning process, we have been walking our campuses, working with administrators, working with the custodians to determine what is the best way we can social distance in the classroom. It really depends on the size of the classroom, the smaller elementary classrooms, pre-K through 2. There are different things we need to consider, such as the curved tables rather than individual desks. So we are looking at the dividers to separate the students. As you move up in the elementary grade levels, you do have desks typical of a classroom. So at the elementary level, we're currently looking at about 12 to 14 students that can be 6 feet socially distanced. We are also looking at the middle school level, probably about 14 desks that can be separated with 6 feet in mind. And then at the high school, 16 to 18 desks for your typical classroom. There are other classrooms that are labs, robotics, science labs, the career technology labs that we're going to be working with not only the administrators, but the teachers to find out what is the best solution to execute the social distancing aspect. As I mentioned earlier on the PPE, all of our staff is going to be required to wear masks. Right now, we're looking for 3rd grade on up to wear the mask daily at the recommendation of the CDC. And then we're also looking at implementing an educational practice into our curriculum, so that way the younger kids pre-K through 2 can learn to wear the face shields, can learn about the social distancing aspect, because we do understand it's been quite a while since they've been around other students. So adjusting to being around other students as well as being back on campus, that is going to be part of our educational plan moving forward. The third question, could you repeat that again, Ms.
Daily sanitation?
Hand sanitizer, yes, ma'am. So as I mentioned, the district did an excellent job of planning for closure and planning for COVID-19 prior to spring break. We had ordered plenty of almost 80 sanitizer stations, the automated ones with the 60% or more alcohol-based sanitizer. We strategically placed those in high traffic areas for our campuses. We also utilize those for our 2 graduation events to have those around. So we are prepared for that. Now, what we are looking also for hand sanitizers is to have the individual automated dispensers in each classroom as well. So those can be utilized throughout the day.
Thank you, Mark. Our next question is for Ms. Maldonado. Will there be an option for kids with asthma and other ailments to be taught online instead of in class?
So we understand that some of our students do have underlying health conditions and parents are very concerned. And those same options that are available to all of our students are available to any student with underlying health conditions. I do encourage our parents to talk to their students' physicians and see what is best, especially if they want their child to come to school. And they can contact me at any time for further guidance as well. So I am available and to help assist and talk through any concerns that our parents have in regard to health conditions.
Thank you, Valerie. Our next question here is, it looks like it's from a student and it's for Dalila. Will we ever go back to PE and mariachi?
So along with football and all the extracurricular activities, PE is a required content, and PE comes even with required minutes that we have to complete. So whether you're at home joining us virtually or whether you come face to face, PE will be a content that would have to be taught every single day. Now, being able to come back face to face and joining PE with your peers, we will have to follow some social distance guidelines as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dalila. And we have time for one more question. This one is for Dr. Verstup. And the question is, how is the district deciding on next year's approach? We know we're following local and state guidelines, but what do we see for the future as we continue to plan?
You know, we're going to remain optimistic about where we're heading in the future. And I think right now we will continue to collaborate with our state, local health and educational folks, and make best decisions that are in the interest of safety and well-being for our students. That's always going to be primary and first and foremost to us here in the district, and we know to our families as well. I'm going to say that it's important that we look to the future beyond the pandemic. And when I hear questions like that have ever, makes you sad, because we know that the school experience for our children is lifetime memories for them. And we want to get our children back into our buildings as soon as we can, but we never want to not offer the solace and peace of mind for our families to stay in remote environments if that's their choice. And so it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we serve all of our students and all of our families in whatever choice they make, that we need to do our due diligence to make sure that whatever module our students choose, that it's engaging, that it's a very effective teaching and learning environment, that is challenging to our students, and that we're supportive of our students and our families. And right now, we'll just keep having dialogue. So a lot of times we get guidelines and we get flexibilities and we have some decisions. And then in the case of the health order, that's called a directive. We just have to be in compliance. But we can be in compliance with the health order, but that gives us an opportunity to really hone our skills and remote learning opportunities. And the selection of our learning management system and making sure that our students and our parents have an opportunity to have professional development around what that looks like. It's something that we want to do a great job with, and we're going to do a great job with. So remain optimistic and look forward to the future beyond the pandemic. By why we're here, let's do the best job and work together and support our youth.
And Dr. Verstov, actually, we have a little bit more time. I did want to ask you, we've had some questions around what the plan is for special education.
Yes, and so we understand that we want to serve our special education students, and so we've been having conversations with our local health folks, and the order that is out right now is the same order that complies with all of our students. We want to get our classrooms open and bring our students in who need that face-to-face interaction, who through nonverbal cues that our educators understand what some of the needs are and how do we support our students. So in the event that we're able to offer face-to-face opportunities, and we have what's called a capacity threshold, which means if the local order says, okay, you can start face-to-face on this date, but you can only go up to 20% of your students, we are going to prioritize our student groups who we think have suffered the most because of remote learning and that not being the best opportunity for the students to be in. So we definitely are aware of the needs of our populations that we want to get back in face-to-face and benefit more. And we're definitely going to work to that direction.
Thank you, Dr. Verstov. I'm going to squeeze one more question in here. A lot of people are asking, a lot of our families are asking about transportation. So Mr. Figueroa, is that something that maybe you can touch on?
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. Thank you. We know that it's the measures that we're taking in the classroom also extend to our classroom on wheels, which are our buses, educating our students about the social distancing practices, researching what are the best practices and recommendations, not only from, as I mentioned, national, local, and state authorities, but also from other districts. I collaborate with other safety directors throughout the state. I collaborate, or we collaborate in our transportation department with other Central Texas transportation departments to share best practices. What are the recommendations? How are we going to execute that? How do we social distance on the buses? What type of cleaning products are we going to use? EPA, FDA approved. Training our bus drivers how to sanitize the buses after each tier run. That's going to be important. We're going to have sanitizer on the bus as kids come on. You know, some of those practices that we are looking at are not only for our district, but it's what's locally recommended by our health authorities as well. So that's going to be part of our training, bringing our drivers back Our plan is to make sure that they're aware of the expectation of, daily cleaning, repeated cleaning after each tier at the end of the day, and then going back and reviewing, what are things that we can do better? We can always improve our practices. So that is one of our priorities moving forward with safety. Now, we would definitely not be excluding transportation in our planning. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And again, we're out of time, but I do want to thank our panelists for tonight's town hall. I want to thank all our families that are present tonight as well. We have so many questions that have been coming in through the chat and that our families have provided. We're not forgetting those questions. We're gathering those questions. We're going to develop an FAQ. We are going to be providing that FAQ on our district website. And as Dr. Verstoff mentioned, we're going to have several of these town hall meetings, these virtual town hall meetings throughout the next couple of weeks to help provide more information to our families. And we should have more of those finalized details as we continue on through the next couple of weeks and guidelines are provided. So again, I want to thank everyone, remind everyone to stay safe out there. Para nuestras familias que van a querer esta presentación en español, vamos a preparar el video y presentación para la página web. Muchas gracias y gracias por su paciencia. Thank you and good night, everybody.